In this top 10 list, I'm going to be doing something that I believe I have literally never done before on the program. I'm going to be doing a product review and formatting my thoughts about the product in the form of a top 10 list. So what I did was for the first time ever, reached out to a company and said, hey, that thing you make, I want to try it out. Now, you might be familiar with the fact that I am a writer. I do obviously some political writing op-eds and things like that, writing some stuff for the show, writing top 10 lists, those sorts of things. But also I write fiction. And like a lot of writers, I'm very interested in the tools of the trade, the different things you can use to get your writing done. And so for a few years now, on social media, Instagram, things like that, I'd been seeing this. The Astro House Freewrite Smart Typewriter. Astro House is a company that makes a range of what are described as distraction-free writing tools. So this is, as it says, kind of like a typewriter if a typewriter was made today. It's a mechanical keyboard, an e-ink screen, it charges via USB-C, that sort of thing, all in one device. And so the idea is that you do your writing on this. It automatically syncs in a way that you can get your writing to things like Google Docs and those sorts of things. But it's not like a full web browser. You're not going to be getting distracted by notifications popping up, those sorts of things. That's the concept, at least. And so I thought, well, I get easily distracted. I would love to be more productive. So I'm going to reach out and ask to try it. And so I did. And so I'm borrowing this one after the review. I'm going to be sending it back. But I've used it now for a few different forms of writing, both a little bit of stuff for TDR as well as I wrote a short story on it, a sci-fi short story. So I have a Patreon, patreon.com/Iadarola, where every month I release fantasy and sci-fi short stories. And I wanted to really get an experience of what it's like over the course of a week and a half, 2 weeks to write on it. And now I have my thoughts. If this is a thing that might be useful to you, you maybe have seen some reviews, those sorts of things. I have quite a bit of use with this now, and so I wanted to add to that. I will say, if it's not already clear, it is a fairly niche product. It is designed for a person that wants to get some writing down, get productive, sort of block out some distractions. But here are some of the things that I think about it. And number 10, I do want to talk about battery life. So I like to write at a desk, at my computer. I also like to write out and about. I like to write at cafes and things like that, at the library. And one of the issues I've always had with just writing on a laptop is the battery always seems to be dead. Unless you're charging it on a daily basis, you get there and you need to worry about plugging it in, or maybe it's dead and you're like, okay, so I can't go right now. I need to plug it in for an hour or two so it gets some charge. It's so annoying. Well, this battery is, I don't know how long it lasts, but it lasts a really long time. I think I charged it once over the 2 weeks that I've been using it. It's just there and ready to go. I know one of their other models advertises a 30-hour battery life, but whatever it is, it's 2 to 3 times a normal laptop battery life. And why wouldn't it be? The screen is small, it's e-ink, which requires less electricity, and it's just dependable for that reason. It's a small thing, but if I'm going to have a device where a brief window opens up to get some writing done, I just want it to be ready to go, and it's been dependable in that way. So the battery life is very good. I mentioned during my initial description the syncing, and that's my number 9. I want to talk about the syncing. So what you write on this device automatically goes to their website called Postbox that you'll create an account for. And whenever you write something, it instantly updates it to Postbox, assuming you have the Wi-Fi turned on. From there, you can have that instantly sync to a variety of other places. So the one that I use is Google Docs. You can do Dropbox. I think there's an Apple-focused one. And it's very useful. You write a thing down here, and it's there on your computer for you to potentially edit, or if you're writing a part of a longer manuscript, to integrate it into that, because this is designed to be a drafting tool. It's not designed for you to produce a final product on, do a bunch of editing, those sorts of things. It's possible to do that, but it's not made for it. And I have found it to be very useful. For context, I used to have a device called an Alpha Smart Neo 2, which is very much like this. It's a product that a lot of kids had in high schools back 20 years ago. But the issue is that it doesn't have any form of syncing. And so you had to plug it into a computer and transfer the files over, which is fine. But this is just more convenient, the fact that it automatically syncs. Now, that said, unless you do their, like, I think they have like a monthly program. It doesn't sync both ways. So it doesn't, like, if you make changes on your computer, it doesn't sync it to the device. And I was very interested in whether that would bother me, because I do write in a variety of different places. And I can't say whether long term or not it would bother me. I will say that in terms of working on this project, I can sit down, write a specific thing, and just do the editing and the integration and the changes elsewhere. I can sort of compartmentalize my mind in that way. So it didn't end up bothering me, and I found the syncing to be very smooth, very convenient, and I haven't had any problems with it. At this point, I'd like to move on to one of the major things that I liked about this project, which is the form factor. So the raw device, not the OS or anything like that, but just the device that you get. I really like this as a form factor. It's obviously very different than like a laptop. It's much more like a typewriter. But for context, I've always really liked the idea of typewriters. I like the idea of this single thing that's dominated by a keyboard that you work on. It weighs, I think, around 4 pounds, but it doesn't feel heavy to me. And importantly, it has an integrated handle in it. So you can get like different sleeves and cases and things like that to put it in, but I've just been toting it around in my book bag, or my, like bag that I carry my laptop in. It's very convenient to have this handle. It doesn't seem overly heavy. I like the format for writing on like a table. I think you can also place it on your legs if you're sitting in a chair, on a couch or something like that, and that's very convenient. And just having this one thing that I know is dedicated, like it's physically dedicated to getting this writing done, I just think that works really well. And so I wasn't sure what I'd think about it. I like the look of it when I saw it online, but I do really like the form factor. I think that it's got these little switches for dealing with like the Wi-Fi and for switching between different folders where your drafts are stored. It's got a power button, and the rest of it's basically the screen and the keyboard, and that's pretty much it. So major benefit for the form factor. But that said, if I move on to, I believe, my number 6, there are some small issues with the form factor that I would prefer if they changed in a future version. I don't know that they will. This is the 3rd generation. It's very similar to the first, but small things. So I'm going to be nitpicky. Bear with me. So the keyboard ends here, and then the device ends there. And I understand why they did that. The device is already large. It fits in a backpack or something, but it's not small. So my preference would be if it continued out into a wrist rest. That's what I would like. And they have another device in their line of products called the Alpha that actually has that. It has an integrated wrist rest. That to me would just be a little bit more comfortable. It would definitely be more comfortable if I'm writing on my lap, but I honestly think even just on a desk, it would be better to elevate your wrist a little bit, because there is a little bit of height to this keyboard. And I just think that with the slope of the device, it would be more comfortable with that. Now, if you're using this in a dedicated place, or if you wanted, you could just bring a wrist rest with you. You could totally do that, but I would prefer if it was integrated into it. And then the only other form factor thing is it has this integrated screen, as you can see. For me, it could be a little bit more angled. It's not a big deal. It's definitely nitpicky, and especially if you're at you're sitting at your desk like this, you can see it. I just think like a few more degrees, I think maybe. I don't know exactly what it is, but I feel like maybe 30, 35 degrees would be optimal for that, and that would be very nice. But those are the nitpicky things that I have to say about the form factor. Let's turn now to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Maybe this is 6, actually. This is another benefit, which is the operating system, or basically like what is the software that you're working with. So it's pretty simple, really. I mean, it turns on and off with this button. It has like a screensaver. You press it, it turns on, and maybe the most important thing of all of this is it turns on fast, and then you're right there at your document. And that's what I love. In terms of being distraction-free and helping me in productivity, I love that you have your different documents, and that's what you're in. That's it. So for context, I had been working on kind of like a DIY version of this, combining like a mechanical keyboard with like an iPad mini. And I might do that just for fun. And that is versatile in that you can run different programs. You can have, if you're a writer, you can have Scrivener on there, or Google Docs, or Ulysses, or there's a lot of different programs like that. And that's good. The flexibility is good. But it's a thing where you're going to have to make sure that you're in the right thing, and you're going to have to move around, and it's going to have, like, this is just this. You open it up and you're at the exact point you were at in your last document. And I find that to be very convenient, especially if you are pressed for time. I'm, a new father. I don't have a lot of time to write. A few minutes here or there is useful, and I don't have to worry about plugging in my iPad. Like, I don't have to do any of that. So combining with the fact that the battery is very reliable, the OS is just, it's very smooth. It has, beneath the main screen, I don't know if you can see, it has this secondary screen where you can have different sorts of like supplementary information, including how long it would take to read the thing that you've written, how many words and characters you have. You can have a clock. You can do like sort of a stopwatch for like writing sprints. It's really not a complex thing. You interact with it mostly through keyboard shortcuts, which are not actually listed on it. I would say that if those were listed maybe on the back of the device, that would be a good idea. But there's really not much to the OS, and that, I think, is a benefit. So let's turn to, okay, this is number 5. And this is a major flaw, I think. Bearing in mind, I was not given this by the company. I was just loaned it to use for the review. But that said, if I decide to buy one of these things, it is not like an impulse purchase type of thing. I'm going to look to see what the current price of this smart typewriter is, like on Amazon or on their website. And it looks like on Amazon right now, it is $670. And you might think, well, that seems like a lot of money. And yeah, no, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, especially for a dedicated writing device. It's especially for a thing that is designed to fix some problems that are kind of first world problems in terms of being distracted by notifications and batteries running out, the sorts of things that I've been complaining about. It is a lot of money. So you have to either be making money off of your writing, and sort of where it makes sense that you'd pay a good amount for a device that you're using, or just, really be into this sort of thing. That said, look, you can get them secondhand for less, and they do have other models that are less expensive. So the laptop version, it's kind of like a clamshell. It's very similar. It doesn't have the mechanical keyboard. That is $500. And they do have their new version called the Alpha, which is $350. They also have a few different colored versions of this that are more expensive, like an all-black one that I think is like $100 more. So there is a range of products, but none of them are cheap. Now, for historic context, the Alpha Smart Neo that I had, that like old school thing that kids would use in high school, you can get those now on eBay for like $80 or something. But when they were new, adjusted for inflation, they were like this price. I mean, it was like a laptop, basically. And if you were to get a laptop for writing, it would be more expensive than this device. So, yeah, you got to put it in the context of the other things that you might potentially use to accomplish the same goal. And then remember that this has some benefits that those other things might not. Some of which I've already mentioned, some of which I will, including my next benefit. So at number 4, it is the screen that you have. So I don't know how much you can see of this. It might just look to you like, it's a regular screen. It's small. But it is e-ink. So if you are familiar with like a Kindle, this is not like a monitor. It's not a thing of these like digital pixels and light being beamed into your eyes. It is a physical thing more like paper, okay? It is electronic. It does update and all that. But looking at it as a person who spends so much of my day staring at screens of one variety or another, I'm either looking into a lens, or I'm looking at a preview monitor, or I'm looking at a computer, or I'm looking at my phone all day. I'm on devices. I get eye strain and I get headaches, and it bothers me. And that's not the sort of thing that you want on your mind when you're trying to be creative. This screen, though, is e-ink. It does not provide that eye strain. I mean, it does a little bit for me, just because I need to be wearing my reading glasses or whatever, but, your experience may be different. Now, it does have a backlight with a variety of different levels of backlighting. I prefer not to use it at all unless I need to, both because the battery will last longer and also it looks more like I'm writing on paper. It gives you more of that typewriter feel, but if you want the backlight or you need it for, the place that you're typing in, that is available. You can definitely do that. Not all of their devices have the backlight, bear in mind. And the newest device, their Alpha, is not an e-ink. It's like a special kind of LCD. But the Traveler, the laptop version, which I'm also testing, by the way, does have an e-ink screen as well. You can set it to have different sizes of the font. But regardless, it is a small screen, so you're not going to have a lot of text on it at a time. And some of you might think that that would be a bad thing. I think it's a very good thing. Because remember, this is a device that is designed for you to get down as much text as possible. Just get it out there. You don't want to or need to be looking at the thing you wrote 3 paragraphs ago or 5 pages ago or anything like that. So for me, it's a good size for me to be able to look down when I'm typing and see what I'm writing, and not more than I need to see. And it doesn't strain my eyes. It's like a pleasure to look at. It's one of the main reasons, honestly, that I don't want to do my DIY thing of like an iPad mini, because I don't necessarily need more time spent staring at a tablet, basically, which is what this would be. Now, my number 3 is one aspect of the fact that it's an e-ink screen has, if you've read or watched reviews of this device, led to a lot of criticism of the device, which is that an e-ink screen does not update as fast as an LCD. So when you type, you might be used to on your computer, you type, the text is there. You know, like maybe you're on Bluetooth or something, maybe it's not quite as fast, but it's very fast, almost instantaneous. And so the idea that's bothered a lot of people in this is you type and it takes a split second for it to show up. Now, there have been multiple generations of this device, and there's been multiple firmware editions even for this 3rd generation. So I cannot speak to the experience of the 1st or 2nd gens, and I can't say what it was like before the firmware updates. I also can't say what it's like when you have a document of 10 or 20,000 words or something like that. But what I can say is that that was one of the chief things that I was worried about because of all the reviews I'd seen, that it was going to be annoying how long it takes for it to update. When you backspace, it would take a while. But it hasn't bothered me. I know that it bothers some people. I don't know if they have the new version or if they have the old version, but I will say that it has not bothered me. Now, part of that might be that I don't expect that I'm not going to have a single typo or something like that. I'm fine with there being typos. When I get to the editing phase, I'll deal with that. And I'm mostly looking at the keys as I type anyway, so I'm less conscious of if it's slow. But it really, and I'm being completely honest, remember, they didn't give this to me. I'm not getting this for free or anything. They're not paying me. It doesn't feel very slow to me. It feels perfectly fast enough. And so that's not a thing that actually bothers me, and it was one of my chief concerns. I had several concerns about this, that being one of them, syncing, maybe not liking the form factor, and all 3 of those things didn't really bother me. Now, I'm going to turn to a benefit. My final thing will be the main flaw from my point of view and my suggestions to them for what they could do to improve it. So there will be some criticism coming, but first let's turn to the main benefit that I'm seeing coming out of my experience with about 2 weeks with this device. This is my number 2, is the claim is that this is going to be a distraction-free device. You are not going to be typing in a Google Docs, and then you have this other tab over here, and you have notifications coming up, and you could easily play a YouTube video. You can't do any of those things on here. You don't have tabs. I mean, you could theoretically go over to another folder, but you're not watching YouTube videos. You're not playing Steam games. So that's the claim. That's one of the main things that interested me. I want to be more productive. I'm prone to distraction. So what do I think? I think it works. I think it is more distraction-free. I think that it feels more like a typewriter in that it is really just about the thing you're writing. And you just get it down. And there's a variety of small things that contribute to that. The fact that you can't see a whole bunch of what you wrote. The fact that you're not really encouraged to go back and delete things. You can move through what you typed on this newest version to make small edits, but it's a little bit awkward, and you're not really encouraged to do that anyway. The fact that you can have information on the bottom about how long you've been writing, how many words you've written, that encourages me to write more. I have just found it made good on that claim. I don't know that that would work for everyone, but for me it did. And I will also say it wouldn't necessarily work for me for all sorts of writing. So I write a variety of genres. Some of them, this lines up very well with just, I have my screen, I'm typing away. When I write sci-fi, I tend to have to do a lot more like looking for the right word, like maybe sometimes Googling like scientific facts, like that sort of writing. Sometimes I kind of need to be multitasking. I don't want to, but I kind of need to. Other writing, it's not an issue though, and so your experience may vary. If you're writing most fiction, I think this would work very well, particularly if you're a person who likes to do journaling or something. I think that this is like the perfect device for that. So the main claim that it will be distraction-free, that it will increase your productivity, I think that worked for me. In just a couple days, I wrote the short story, the first draft of a short story that I'm working on for my Patreon, and I found it to really encourage me to get the words out. And so that was good. Now, number one, my main criticism, and the main thing other than those couple of form factor tweaks that I would suggest, the main thing that I would suggest to them that they should change, I understand this is pretty big. I don't think they're going to do this, but this device is a screen and it is a mechanical keyboard. So it's not like a laptop keyboard. It's like a full-on, like what you might think of as a gaming keyboard, okay? It's mechanical keys, okay? You can probably hear it here. This is the spacebar. And like many people, I take issue with the noise that's produced. Not so much in the keys. I don't really mind that. But once you get to the bigger keys that if you're a mechanical keyboard enthusiast, you know have stabilizers, the bigger keys that help them, the return key is a little bit loud. The backspace key is a little bit loud. Shift and caps lock, a little bit loud. Okay, that's not too bad. I found this spacebar sound to be a bit of an issue. If I'm by myself and I don't have to worry about the noise I'm making, I get used to it. It doesn't super bother me. But when I first sat down to type with this, I thought, okay, the keys sound nice. I like that. This just does not sound good to me. It sounds loud. It sounds disruptive. And this is the sort of device that I would be perfectly comfortable taking this to a cafe and writing with it. Now, I know some of you might say, I'm going to look like a hipster doofus, and maybe you're right, but I don't care. I'm already married. I'm not trying to impress anyone. And I don't think that this would necessarily bother people noise-wise too much, but I worry that this would. Again, I don't know if it's coming through on the microphone, but I definitely hear it. So there's two versions of this criticism, or my suggestion to Astra House. The first is, get a handle on this spacebar, man. You gotta make the spacebar quieter. Just do that. That would be good. Ideally, also, the larger keys like return and shift. If you could make that change, that would be good. If you just dampen the spacebar, and understand that if I don't want this to be a thing that leads you to not buy it if you're otherwise interested. If you're interested, there are things you can do to quiet it down. People put O-rings on the stabilizer. You can put foam inside to stop a little bit of the echo or the reverb. There are mods that you can do, and they're not particularly complicated. So that's certainly something you can do. But to go beyond just the spacebar, my actual suggestion to this company for what I think you could do that would make this so much more versatile and also potentially make you some money is, and if you're not a mechanical keyboard enthusiast, I might lose you here, so I apologize for that. But mechanical keyboards come in a variety of types, okay? You have the keys, the actual like plastic generally keys that you have, and then you have the switches underneath, which are largely that's what creates the sound, okay? So there are a wide variety of different switches out there. There are ones that are designed to be very, very quiet. I own some of those. The ones I have are called Cherry Red Silence. There are ones that are designed to be clicky and noisy because a lot of people like that sound. Not necessarily for public, but they like it. So these switches are what are called brown switches, which are like kind of a little bit more on the quiet side, a little bit you hear the sound or whatever. I don't think that that's a bad choice. The issue is that it is not a choice that you can change really on the keyboard. So some mechanical keyboards, the switches are soldered into the keyboard. They're basically permanent. There are others that are hot swappable. You can change them anytime you want. I have some mechanical keyboards where I can and have changed the switches. So what a lot of like people who like mechanical keyboards do is they change out the keycaps for aesthetics or sound. They change out the switches. You can't do that on this. Well, you can do part of that. You can change the keycaps, but really only like this central area because the rest of them are not standardized, okay? They have this like split keyboard, and I understand that there's a couple of special functions that this keyboard needs to accomplish on the OS. I would say try to get that onto other buttons and create a standardized keyboard that is hot swappable. If they did that, this would be so much better. I really like it. I'm really enjoying it. I don't want to send it back. I want to be clear about that. But if this was a standardized thing where I could switch out these brown switches for silent reds, or if I wanted to go even louder, I could do blue clacky switches or something like that. And then I could put whatever keycaps on I want. My God, so much more customizable, so much more control over the amount of sound. And by the way, they could sell these things. They could sell the alternate switches. They could certainly produce and sell their own keycaps. That would be, I think, a great way to make money. I mean, after all, you sell this to a person and that's probably the only purchase they're going to make from you for a few years. But if you were selling your own keycaps, then maybe they would come back and buy those. And it would allow, like, I wouldn't have to worry about the sound of this spacebar because I could make it quieter by switching out the switches, the keycap, or just for aesthetic purposes. Maybe I want pink keys. Maybe I want baby blue keys. How great would it be if I could switch that out myself? I know that it is easier said than done, particularly since the keyboard is integrated into their OS, but maybe if they were to come up with a new device, I would just do that, because none of their devices thus far are hot swappable in that way. With this and with the Alpha, you can change some of the keycaps, but that's really as far as customization goes, or at least customization without a lot of DIY and really getting in there. So that would be my biggest suggestion. I would try to someday come out with a version of this that keeps the great battery, the form factor, the e-ink screen, the syncing, all of that. Maybe adds a wrist rest, but maybe that's just me. But creates a standardized, hot swappable 60% mechanical keyboard, to use the terminology of those enthusiasts. That would be the ultimate writing device, and I would love it. I already really like this. I enjoy this, and I'm enjoying the Traveler as well, their other product that they have. I might test out the Alpha 2, but I would feel so much more comfortable typing in public if it didn't have this space bar. If I could customize it to my own appearance, that would be nice. So anyway, it was very nice of them to send me the device for a couple of weeks to use it. I have really enjoyed it. As I said, I wrote a short story on it. That'll be coming out on my Patreon at patreon.com/Iadarola in the upcoming months, joining many, many short stories and podcasts and all that, which is available, so go check that out. Thank you to Astro House for making this available. I'll be shipping it back and giving serious consideration to whether I want to pick one up. As I said, it is pricey, but I did really enjoy it. I found it to help with distractions. I found it to increase my productivity, and I'm into it. I would just be even more into it if I could customize it more. But anyway, that is the top 10 list for this week. I know that this is a niche product. I know I don't normally do product reviews, but if you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for bearing with me as I experiment a little bit. I hope that you enjoyed. If you had suggestions, by the way, for future top 10s, maybe you want to see more product reviews. Maybe I should try the Apple Vision Pro. What do you think? You can post that down below. Thank you for being a member and making this possible. I'll see you soon.